Hello, heathens.
Hello, heathens.
It's heathens at night.
Heathens at night.
We normally don't record this late, but every once in a while we have to.
Hey, life happens.
Yeah, shit happens.
Oh,
Shit might actually happen.
it
So
might actually
stay tuned.
happen. Stay tuned. We might have an
A
intermission.
pooping intermission. Sorry,
Pooping
TMI for those,
intermission.
but your girl in
Heathens.
milk. Yeah,
Heathens.
you know what you know what podcast you're listening to, okay?
That's
Your
right.
girl doesn't really mix with milk that well, and so
Mine
I
does not. Doesn't like it.
made a whole dish with all the milk and it was just milk
And
on
then
milk on
sprinkled
milk.
some milk on top.
Yeah, I did. I swear to God, people that say that lactate works for who? Because not for me. I had to
Are
get
you
some
sure you're taking
Tums.
enough of it?
I took two. It's you know what? We're gonna push through.
Ooh, push through. Good choice of words.
Yeah. Give you a lot of poop jokes here.
Oh, good. Good. It'll go right along with
How
the
about
topic.
I'm gonna grieve my butthole? You're welcome. You're so welcome.
Thank you for that visualization, Cassie.
Everybody poops.
Everybody poops. I don't care how old I get. Poop and fart jokes are still fucking funny.
They're still funny. Let's
They're
be
so
honest. I
funny.
saw a girl on TikTok the other day that was talking about how there's nothing funnier than farting in front of a significant other, like your person. And I would agree.
I agree too.
I would agree. And the more hostile it is, the funnier it is.
Absolutely. Rob will be like, do you have to change your pants? Like, that sounded concerning. I'm like,
Yeah.
don't. I do have a fart joke. I do, or a fart story
Oh,
that goes down
let's hear
for the
something funny
ages.
before we get into the
I
deep
know,
end here.
right? Here we go. So this was back in long time ago. We went to San Francisco, Rob and I did, because one of our friends from Fish Doctors had moved to not San Francisco, but like Oakland. So it was just south of San Francisco.
Okay.
But we're close. So we go, we do very touristy things, and we go to eat at this place called the Stinking Rose, which still exists to this day, right? So they have garlic in everything. They even have roasted
Ooh,
garlic that's just a garlic clove that has been cooked so it's as soft as butter, right? And you put it on
yummy.
a thing. Girl, we were eating it down like bread, and I don't know how many garlic pieces I ate. I don't, and then there was garlic in the dish. Like we're talking like it was a thing, right?
I would have ate all of it too.
Oh, it was so good.
Garlic's so good.
The next day, or maybe it was that night. I can't remember. It was that night though. It was like said incident happened at night. So for some reason, because we are heathens, we had too many people for the car we had in, but we all like climbed in, right? Because we're young and there wasn't Uber back then either.
Right.
So there was two people in the front, driver and the passenger, and then there was three people in the middle section, and then I was laying in the backpack because there was no seats. It was just like the cargo area, if you will, right?
Yes.
So I'm laying back there. And you know how like your stomach doesn't feel, it feels a little weird. And you're like, I'm gonna have to do this, but it's okay. Like it won't stink. It'll be fine, right? We all tell ourselves that silent is gonna be silent. It's fine.
You didn't even have a window to put down or nothing.
Girl, no, I was trapped in the back. This is what you get, right?
Yes.
When you put me in the back. So, and we're talking like it's not like I did it like, haha, I'm gonna get them. It was more like, oh God, this is coming. That there's nothing I can do about it, right? So it comes out and it's super silent. Like everybody was talking amongst themselves. They totally forgot I was back there. Like they're just like membering on like nothing, like I don't even exist. And then, and then somebody smells it. And they automatically thinks it's one of the guys that we hang with because he's a notorious gross person, like a gross boy. You know, he's always like, he would be the one that would always kind of like flash his cock or like his asshole or like,
Okay.
hey, it was the 90s. What are you going to do?
Yeah, okay.
Uh, and it was like, oh God, what? And it wouldn't matter if you were a guy or girl. It was just one of those things that I don't know. We're weird. You know, I'm a heathen. I came from heathen people. I come honestly, right?
Yes.
So, uh, so they automatically think it's him. And they're like, oh my God, it smells so bad. What crawled up and dyed your ass? Like
You're like garlic.
all the windows went down like simultaneously, like the wind's all blowing, like everybody's dying. They're talking, they're like, oh my God. And of course he's like, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. Like, you know, they're going on and on for a good 15 minutes. Oh, then somebody realizes that I haven't said shit. And they remember I'm in the back. And maybe I might have giggled a little bit to remind them. But they were like, oh my God. Like they talk about it. It's the fart that I've had that people still remember to this day. And it's probably been like 20 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's that good.
It traumatized them into
It traumatized
remembrance.
all absolutely, absolutely. So that's my fart joke.
It's more like
Don't feed
fart
me.
story.
Don't feed me a lot of garlic and be in the same or trap me in the back.
Yeah. Well, what they expect? You were in the back, you didn't have a window. You were probably getting bounced around like crazy.
Right. Didn't even think about that part, right? I was just back there like living my life, like laying. I'm like, this is nice. I get to lay down, like it's fine. And then, oh God, my stomach was like bubble bubble. I was like,
Yeah.
oh no.
You're like, incoming. Incoming.
I was dying because it was just so the fact that they were just like, dude, we can't even believe you did that. Like
And then it was you and they were even more horrified, but in a way that was respectful.
absolutely. It was a respectful, horrifying thing for sure.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so there you go. There's my backstory.
Yeah, there's the funniest, easiest part about the night.
Right? Okay, we're gonna go right into grief.
Yeah, seriously. So, yeah, tonight is about grief. Well, this episode will come out during the day, so today's about grief. Um, and I figured we'd start grief off with the definition
I like that.
because I've never actually looked it up. And essentially, it's a good one and it's just simple. The definition of grief is deep sorrow, especially from the
Wow.
loss of a loved one. And I was like, all right, Webster, we don't
That's
need to
so
fight on this
nice.
one.
Absolutely. That's so nice.
Yeah,
Deep
that was,
sorrow too. Sorrow is such a great word
yeah.
too.
It like holds so much feeling and meaning behind it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? It's just, you're right, that is a good word. So grief is complicated, right? But normal. We
But
all
normal.
experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I realized tonight that I have not thought of before is all the different kinds of grief that you can experience in life, other than just the loss of a loved one. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
traumatic events, there's like losing your job, losing your car, losing your house, losing like it's the loss of something. And you know what I mean? And it can look
Mm-hmm.
very different for every person. And it can be so complicated because there's so many feelings behind grief.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and there's no handbook really. You know, there's probably some science out there that makes fine sense and stuff like that. But like when you're digging through these emotional waters where they're kind of salty and kind of dark, there's really no end or beginning, or it's almost like you're just plopped down in there in this desert kind of land, right?
Yeah. No water, no food, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, grief is it's a I found this where's it at? This like little tidbit that I thought was really, really important. That was like basically grief can hide itself really well in your life. And it can make you can like it can hide to the point that you feel like nothing changed, even though you lost somebody or you had this traumatic event that caused grief, and we suppress it. It's us suppressing it. That's why it's quote unquote hiding, because it's
Mm-hmm.
too hard to face sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was like, thinking about that, I was like, wow, that's so true. So quick little like story of like one of my biggest grievances in life was when my aunt passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I cried a little bit that night, and then I didn't cry. And then one day, randomly, I was in the shower. It was a good day. We were at home. We cleaned. We were chilling. And this was back when I lived with Bella, and it just fucking smacked me out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, it's movie-esque. I'm on the floor of the bathtub with the water, and I'm just sobbing. And I get out. And Bella can hear me at that point. She comes in. She's like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Like, did something happen?" And I was just like, my aunt died. And it
Mm-hmm.
came out of freaking nowhere, because at the time I completely dissociated away from it because I couldn't feel it at the time.
Right.
It was like, gotta be strong, gotta be strong. Like it almost felt like unreal, like it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
real at all.
No, it does very funny things to you for sure. Like, I mean, if you think like just through that, moving through that, like not I can't I don't wanna deal with it, I can't deal with it, like, there's so many voices and layers and levels of, like, the feeling that there's not the adequate word or the explanation that you can actually explain to somebody what it is that you're feeling. You know, you almost need one of those, like, boards that the detectives have where you've got Post-it notes and strings going everywhere, you're like, "This is how I feel." Like,
Yeah,
it's a very strange and fluid.
100%. It's
Mhm.
complicated. Like I said, it's got layers, man. Like
Mhm.
I found this too, and I thought this was like really cool because I've never have thought about what grief actually looks like other than pain.
Mhm.
In my head, I'm just like, it's pain. It's just it's true pain. But then I found that this article had said that grief can look like intense yearning, numbness, disbelief into denial, anger, and disengagement. And
Mhm.
if it's gone unhealed, it can lead to depression, loneliness, isolation, emotional and mental exhaustion, substance misuse, and then it can turn into physical, actual sickness, like real 3D
Absolutely.
sickness. Like there
Mhm.
is heartbroken syndrome, which is an actual thing. It's usually like high
Mhm.
blood pressure, your lungs are compressed, your nervous system's shot, you could get sick really, really easily. And it's insane to me, but it's not, of course. But like in really, really dissecting this and thinking about it, it's insane to me what grief can do to your physical body
Mhm.
and your mental health and your spiritual health and just your well-being all around.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you're not moving through it and you're sitting in it,
Hmm.
it's one of those things that, like, it's like food in the fridge. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
If you put it in there and it's in a place where it's gonna keep good for a while, right? Because 'Cause you've got it in the fridge. Okay. Well, we all know what happens to food in the fridge when we forget about it or
Hmm.
we're disassociating from it. It
Hmm.
starts to, grow bacteria and mold and get gross. And then even better, it starts to smell. And then even further along, it'll start to ooze out,
Yeah.
right? Like it's decomposing at that point, right?
Yeah.
And
I
I
just,
feel like a lot of times our emotions are the same way. Our wounds are, you and I have talked about wounds a lot being just like physical wounds.
yeah, 100%. And there's this big belief in the metaphysical community that things that like get left unhealed will turn into physical, real life physical
Mhm.
3D in your body, on your body wounds. Like
Mhm.
UTIs are anxiety and stress.
Mhm.
And I can't remember some of the other ones right now, but there is a metaphysical meaning behind everything that happens to your body.
Mhm.
And it makes sense.
Well, it's anytime that something really hurts, I try to look it up and see what the emotional behind it is, because clearly that's something that I'm not aware of, right? So, like, like my jaw has been tight. I haven't even like looked that up yet. But Sarah has like helped me and worked through that and kind of that stuff like that. So, uh, these little things that pop up, it's like, why do they happen to us? Like, my grandma that has a heart attack because her brother died, right? Like that's what physical grief does,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I with all of this, I feel like it's good to say that when dealing with grief, we can't only look at like one aspect of it because like there's layers to this shit. It's like there's a spiritual layer, there's a psychological layer, there's a physical layer. Sometimes
Mhm.
there's an external 3D layer to it too.
Mhm.
Meaning like say something traumatic happens to you in your house and you get physically harmed and you will go through the grief of the physical harm, like something happened to your body and now you have this big, it turns into sorrow, true deep sorrow.
Mhm.
And you don't change anything about your house to make you feel safer or whatever you need, comfort, things like that, then that's part of the things we're missing, you know? It can be a pendulum swing of too far in one end, like all just spiritual or all just psychological. We're going to spiritually bypass this, or we're going to get into the spirituality and we're not going to worry about our emotions and we're not going to worry about any of this. And we're only going to look to God, whatever your
Mhm.
God may be, or
Mhm.
whatever your belief may be, you know? And it's like,
This is where drugs come in too,
yeah,
where you can completely disassociate or numb. I know a lot of people that
yes,
numb, and me too, right? Like,
fuck yeah.
numbing things. And again, like I don't sometimes I feel for me, I need little bits of this intense feeling and processing it just that little bit at a time, like a dropper style, instead of like a whole floodgate happening, right?
Mhm.
Because really, realistically, for me, and this is just, one of those things is like, I don't have a place where I can go to completely get destroyed. Like, cry it out, scream it out. Like, none of this is like pleasing to other people. None of this is not what make people feel comfortable. And not that I need to like make people feel comfortable, but this is something raw and something very vulnerable and private for me that I would really, would want to, I don't know, run into a forest and scream.
Yeah, I get that.
Mhm.
I get that. Because that's like what you were just saying is one of the things that I was going to suggest, which is like coping with like life changes after like grief. And part of that is being like creating space for yourself to like have time to disassociate from what you're going through. Because if you sit in it for too long, sometimes that can be even more detrimental, right? Because you're
Mhm.
just in it and you get so deep in it, it's hard to pull yourself back out of it. So, like, creating space to have time away from our pain without
Mhm.
like completely dissociating from it. So then it's just a festering wound, right? Like, just being able to help your healing process, like painting, dancing, baking, journaling, listening to calming music, like giving even giving your grief some kind of expression in that way too
Mhm.
can help.
Mhm.
But sometimes like we can't just sit in it. It's too much sometimes, and that's when
Yeah.
bypassing and dissociation can start happening. We can start it, but it's still there. So that's when all
Mhm.
these other issues come up, right? Like the depression and loneliness and all these other things that can happen because we're not now we've gotten too far away from it.
Right.
I'm the same
It's
way. I need little bits to be able to process it over time. It's like trying to put a whole cake in your mouth.
yeah, yeah, you gotta do it bit by bit instead of it being overwhelming and stuff like that, and, sometimes some things are very overwhelming and typhoonish, and, like, I always say, like, "Listen, I know that we're all put here with the tools that we needed to get through it, right?"
Mhm.
And sometimes when you're standing in, 8 feet of water and you're feeling a little overwhelmed by it, um, I like to try to tell myself that or, like, remind myself that, and sometimes when I know so if I already have the tools to deal with this, then it kinda gives me less anxiety about it, and I
Yeah.
just have to kinda play through it then, right? Like, just continue to step forward one step at a time, whether it's crawling, whether it's, sleeping through it, whether it's, whatever it is at that moment is honoring that moment. We get in trouble though when it starts becoming habitual and a pattern,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah, because
or you start feeling like all of a sudden you're fighting with your friend for no reason, right? Like,
yeah.
it comes out sideways.
Yeah, it's that pendulum swing. We can't let it go
Oh,
too far. It's hard to say because when you're in it, it's hard. And you have to
mm-hmm,
honor yourself. But at the same time, like there has to be a part of you. And if you can't do it, you have I put this down. Having people around you that allow you the room to talk about it and express your feelings and wonder about things that come up during this because most grief this could be hard for somebody who is going through grief to hear, but I truly believe that grief is here to help us grow. It helps
mm-hmm,
us realize a lot of things, right? And so having people around you, because like when you go through a big grief, usually there's a lot of questions that come after,
mm-hmm,
right? Like, why
mm-hmm,
would that happen? Why would this be allowed to happen? Or like, why did this happen? Or, whatever the case may be. And it's like having those people around you that can help you, like, just give you space and, like, love
mm-hmm,
you through that is
mm-hmm.
huge because then they also you're basically allowing somebody to come in and help you regulate. So that, like,
Absolutely.
when you're down in it and you're deep, they can lend a hand to pull you up a little bit to be like,
Mm-hmm,
"Hey, dude, like, are you okay?" Even the question, "Are you okay?"
mm-hmm,
is huge, huge.
mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing is like we all avoid it because it's natural to avoid things that cause us discomfort, right?
Fuck yeah.
When you are dealing somebody with that is grieving in that sense, just sitting with them is all you need to do. You don't have to know what to say or
Yeah,
holding people. It's okay to hold people, right? Like let them cry, let them do what they need to do. Don't fix it. Don't tell them what to do. You know, fix them a sandwich. Take care of them. Give them the blanket. Tell them to go brush their dirty teeth. Stuff like that. Those little things that, like, if they want to tell you the story of the person, if this is a grief of whatever the story, wherever the grief came from or whatever, if they want to tell you the story 900 times, let them tell you at nine. It's processing. That's a
it's
processing
processing.
thing,
Yes,
right?
yes. It's like I found this analogy that I thought was really good because it's such a good one. It's basically your world gets rocked and the foundation that you built your world on now has cracks in it and
Hmm.
pieces have fallen off. So think about
So
like
it's like a
you
tower moment.
yeah. think about it like inside your world, your foundation has been so cracked that you are constantly finding new cracks that have to be investigated and filled. And
Mhm.
that is a process. It's not going to be something that just happens overnight. Like there's no magical elixir that's just going to take it all away and it's just going to be right back to normal.
Right. I mean, we do it as human, and I think it's pretty incredible that, people can do, not that it's healthy, but like I do think it's pretty incredible how fast we can get back to slinging shit. And sometimes that is therapeutic. So, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
sometimes getting back to the grind and doing normal things helps process that feeling through, right?
Yeah.
W- Personally, what I have found, because everything I look at is like a kind of a science experiment. And I've had two women that have lost big loves in their lives. And the one, I saw her every 6 weeks. And I was the first year is obviously hard. The second year I saw a toll on her and her body. And then the third year was where it was like, oh, it wasn't so scary anymore. Like she was coming through. The other one was processed a little bit different, but it was still a 3-year pattern. So if you're active, my theory on grief is that it takes 3 years. I'm not saying it's gonna cure it. I'm not saying nothing like that. I'm saying it takes 3 years. And this allows people to be okay with taking time. It allows people to like, well, it's only been 6 months. Why do I still feel like this? Do you know? Like I hear this a lot, right?
Hmm.
It's like, no, no, honey, you still got 2.5 years to go. You're good. You're still in this is new. And it gives us this time to really feel our way through it where like you're just getting used to the world without this thing or this person is the first year. That first year around the world. And then the second year is almost you finding your feet, like you venture out maybe a little bit more, but like crowds are a lot, people are a lot.
Yeah, it causes life changes.
You have to have this silent moment, almost like you're an infant. Like you wouldn't take your brand new infant out, right? Very overstimulating, I'm sure people do process that way too. This is just particular times that in my life, like, I really got some really good downloads on like, it takes 3 years.
Hmm. Well, and with that being said, like you were saying, like the experience or loss that you go through doesn't necessarily become forgotten or need to
No,
be forgotten or
no, right.
suppressed. It can morph and transform into something that can be honored and see as a part of like the overall human experience.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things that we go through in life, especially like, of course, loss of a loved one. You think about somebody you've lost and that's been gone for a while, and I honor them now. Like my great grandparents, I love my great great grandpa Jake. He was awesome, such a cool person. I have pictures of him and I keep them in like a little family altar that I made so that I can see him and be like, oh, like there he is. You know what I mean? It's like an honored
Hmm.
thing as much more than it is like a sad thing. And like if it's something more personal, like that happens to your body, it can turn into something that's such a good, like, beautiful, like, story for yourself that's like, I fucking did that. I went through that. And it was
Hmm.
horrifying. And I,
Hmm.
I never want to experience that again. But I fucking did that. I didn't let that
Right,
shit break me. Like hell
right.
yeah, you know? It's not like we just forget this stuff. It's just that it gets easier.
Well, you get to live with it instead of it being so overwhelming. Like it's almost like like the hole that the event or the person had left is now filled with this little bit of grief. And the one thing I do want to say about grief is the beautiful part of like sadness and grief is the fact that you found this feeling or this person, especially with people and even like pets and souls and energy and stuff like that. Like you found this feeling with this other person and it was so magical to you that you are now sad that they left.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very beautiful part because if that person didn't really mean anything to you or didn't spark that kind of feeling, which it's funny because even my own grief, but like it has been different when I should be really sad or like I expected myself like when this happens, I'm going to be really sad, like I'm going to feel like this. And when it actually comes, it's not as intense as you thought it was going to be. And then like there's one that comes out of the blue that you're like, well, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
And even different physical like stuff, like when um my best friend's brother died, uh he I had felt in my chest a huge hole. And like the way I pictured it, it was almost like something came out of it. That's why like alien. And I was left with like the black part in the middle and the meat and the bones all around, like all the shattered bits around it.
Mm-hmm.
To the point of like I had to physically put a pillow on my chest to make it feel comforted.
Yeah.
And it's nothing you could tell anybody about or see it, feel it, touch it. And then furthermore, like if it was so confusing to me because it wasn't somebody that I spent every day with.
But it's making me think about PLRs because that when we get into PLRs in the future, a lot of things that we might not understand of why we go through grief in the here and now could be because of a past life too.
Hmm.
That's what that made me think of. I wonder if you had a past life with him.
Well, that's what I always had this vision that like so he's a lot younger than I was.
Yeah.
Um like I remember going to his graduation party, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Rob and I did. And I always had this weird picture vision in my head that we would like hang out when we were old. Cause like when we're younger, like I'm a mom, I gotta do this shit, like da da da. He's young, he's going to college, he's doing his shit. Like it was like that kind of thing, right? So like eventually we'll sit on the porch and I don't know, smoke cigars and like whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when he died, it was such a shock because I was like, what? Like why I had this thing. Like what? Why?
Like, where are you going?
Yeah. And he's really that transformation really was hit me hard and stuck with me for a very long time, like 6 months or so that I really felt raw.
Mm-hmm.
And you do, you go through the phases. You go through like you just carry you're like, okay, this is my cup of grief. We're just gonna go do my day. I'll see you later.
Yeah, dude. Healing grief is fucking messy, okay? Let's be honest. It's really messy. And there's not a rule book, there's not a guideline. There are things that you can try that can help, but it you might think it's healed, but then it comes back. My aunt's been gone for shit, 5 or 6 years now, and it hit me again this year. With
Mm-hmm.
while I was luckily with Rocky, our son Pi, and I was with Nicole. I was very
Mm-hmm.
thankful, and Lucinda actually.
Mm-hmm.
I was with my spiritual family, and it hit at a time where it was like holy shit, I can't believe this is like feeling as raw as it does. But it's
Mm-hmm.
because like you heal it, but it doesn't go away. And sometimes it smacks you in the face again, and you got to work on healing it again. And like, you just
Mhm.
keep going through this like healing phase, and it gets easier over time, but it's fucking messy. Healing
Mhm.
grief is messy,
Mhm.
and it's unique for all of
Yeah.
us, you know?
Well, and that's the problem is like we're so different, but yet we're so much the same. And,
Yeah.
I think science needs facts, right? They don't do very well with variables, right? And each one of us is a different variable. Like what grief is going to look for me with that person is not going to look the same as, like my grandfather dying or like,
100%.
you know what I mean? Like
Or like your cat
it's
or your dog, your loved
right,
animal, like that you loved so much, it's gonna look different.
right.
Like, you're not, we're notebooking this bitch. I know you don't know what that means, but if you know, you know. Nicole and I are notebooking this bitch, okay? There is no way, no fucking way it is notebook. If you know, you know. I can't even, it thought of, you were saying that, and I'm like, oh my God, like I can't even
Right.
fathom losing you. And then I was like, oh, that's right, because I'm not going to, because like you're gone 5 minutes later, baby. I'm out
Oh
this
no,
bitch.
no, 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 no. We talked about this. You're the guardian of my baby. What are you doing?
The
You
baby's
can't.
coming too. We're just
Ah,
we're moving all together. All three of us. We're gonna move
ah.
on to the next journey together.
Oh no, I've decided I'm gonna outlive all of you. I'm gonna be an ancient hag at 109. So it'll be
Yeah, that
fine.
works too.
Right.
It'll just be
I
me and the baby notebooking it out of here. We'll just hit you twice.
well, you know, you and I talked about death and dying a lot, and to the point of we want to open up our own like sanctuary kind of thing and process the dead and like, kind of funeral home essence because you and I are strongly about like the soul and funerals and how they're not doing it a justice and all that stuff. And
Yeah, and the souls that are here experiencing it. Like, ugh,
absolutely,
it's gross.
it was, ugh. And it's hard because, well, I guess I don't actually believe it's hard. I see it's hard for other people, but I don't understand it. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're avoiding it or when you can't face it or like it
The
triggers something
grief.
in you. Yeah, grief and dying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the loss of something.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, y- I guess because I feel everything that like you're like, oh yeah, I felt that. Like, yes, and I cry, and that's okay. I'm allowed to cry. I've at some point I was like, I'm just the crying girl, and this is just what's gonna happen because sometimes it leaks out of my face.
Do you want to know what I think it is? Which is actually one of my next bullet points too, was people aren't very kind to themselves. We're not
Oh,
inherently just kind to ourselves. We're not inherently understanding to ourselves. We could have
that's
somebody
true.
that we don't even know come up to us and start talking to us about how their dad just died and they're really going through it and all this stuff's happening to them, and we will feel the most, we're more like, why are you even working? Like, are you okay? Like,
Yeah,
we'll take
yeah.
care of a random stranger before we take care of ourselves, is what I have learned over time of people grieving. We don't
Mhm.
give ourselves the space. We don't sit with our grief. We don't accept our grief. We don't do anything for our grief because we got to buck up and we got shit to do. And we're not going to give ourselves
Mhm.
anything at all. We are not going to be kind to this. How dare you feel sad for yourself?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's honestly, if you guys really think about it, I know that sounded fucking ridiculous, but it's true. It
It's
is.
exactly what everybody tells themselves, though.
Yes.
You would never say that out loud to another person,
Never.
but you say it every day to yourself.
You would never look at somebody going through a loss of, let's say, something horrifying like losing a child. You would never look at that person and say, get over it. It's been how many
Right,
years? Get over it.
right.
And if you did, you're shit. Sorry,
You
you're
are
shite,
shit.
mate. You
You
are
are
shite, mate.
shit.
You are shite, and I won't be scared to say it. Goodbye. But we
Oh,
wouldn't do that to somebody else. So why are we doing that to ourselves? I
Mhm.
think that is my one of my biggest points today is we really need to start being kinder to ourselves and taking care of ourselves, whatever the fuck it looks like. Like
Mhm.
for me, I'm not somebody when something happens, I don't want to have to be in front of people right as I'm experiencing it. And then when I am, I want to be composed.
Right.
Sometimes that doesn't happen, but that's how I process. So, like, I'll be composed, I'll tell you what happened, and my certain people, I'm not composed with. It's messy. It's a fucking mess. Like Nicole has seen me during some of the worst experiences I have experienced. It's a fucking mess. It's
Mhm.
it's not pretty. And I know I have no words for it and I have no healing things for it. And I give myself that space, you know? If it's something like a funeral that I have to go to, I compose myself and then I break
Right.
after because that's what works for me, you know?
Mhm.
And it's like I allow that in myself and I don't make myself feel like shit about it. Like you didn't cry at the funeral. You probably didn't look like you were even sad or you cared about this person and blah blah blah. Like
Right, right.
why do we do that to ourselves?
It's so I it's just that we're not supposed to because grieving makes people uncomfortable, we don't want to make other people uncomfortable, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't wanna be come over here and be the sad girl, but guess what? I'm going to.
I
Sometimes I'm going to.
sometimes I am the sad girl,
Yeah.
and that's okay. You know, it's normal to experience sadness and deep sorrow.
Well, and the one thing that I really like that's coming about, like, especially because I know you and I talk like this, like, we make plans for, say, Friday, right? And then, like, whatever happens, life happens, and or I just feel it. It's like, hey, I'm feeling a certain way, like I can't go out, and I'd be like, dude, that's cool
Mhm.
because I probably felt it too. But like, it's that whole thing of like, it's okay. We don't have to go out. I'm not going to shame you or like be pissed at you or do you know what I mean? Like honor your feelings. Like besides, if I give you space to honor your feelings, that's what I get to do.
Yes. Yes. By being kind to others, being kind to yourself. By being kind to yourself, you'll be kind to others. It's like we've been talking a lot about kindness within this darkness, but it's I think the first step in starting that I would suggest is being kind to yourself.
Hmm.
Be kind to your fucking self. If you have to sit in your bed for a full day,
Do it.
fuck it, do it. Who
Do
cares?
it.
Who cares? And if somebody cares, fuck
Get
them.
your best, no, get your best friend to come over and make you tea. Or, like we came over and like slept with you, right?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that's That's what we need to heal. That's how we need to heal. Like, it's not the sterile like A, B, and C, and then we get D kind of thing. We're just way too complicated for that.
Yeah. I think.
And some people need you to be outside the room. Some people need you to be in the bed with them. Some people need you to uh just think of that or whatever. Like whatever they need. Like there's such these stages of basically, it's almost like this. You have to be intuitive. You are intuitive enough. Anybody can do this, and I know that everybody has. If I think after a loss, it's been 2 weeks, and I need to call you, I should act on it. You should
Hmm.
act on it
Hmm.
because that's when you're needed the most. But we don't. We don't listen to that. It's been
Yep.
too long. I don't know what to say. We like talk our way out of it, right?
Right. Well, and
And oh,
I
go
feel
ahead.
like what goes along with this too is that we have to accept and acknowledge that we have suffered. Okay, I think that goes along with the being kind. If we don't even acknowledge that we're hurt by something, like to the point that it is grief,
Mhm.
you're not you're not being kind to yourself by not accepting it. Like and you have to be kind in that acceptance. Exactly what you're saying. Like, do
Mhm.
you guys, I cannot tell you, I could probably go back and count just this year alone, which would be a lot, how many times I've been like, "Hey, can I call you?" To Nicole, just to shoot her
Yeah.
a text. If she's busy and she's like, "No, I'm doing this, like, do you need me right now?" It's
Yeah.
just that simple. Where it's like, "Actually, no, this can wait," or "Actually, no, I, like, need you right now."
Right, right.
And then that's just how it is, like, it's that simple, like, where I can just be like I've done it so many freaking times, and sometimes it's about something that hit me hard again, and it has been months, years, and
Mhm.
it just comes up, and I sometimes you need that person too to rely on to be there and, like, just share it because also, like, sometimes it's so heavy and so hard to, like, process on our own that we need that person to share the energy with. Like, even
Well,
when I
you
was
need
sick.
somebody to yeah, you need somebody to, like, look through you're like, "Look at this."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay." And you're like, "Do you see what I'm seeing?" Because the waters get too muddy and murky,
Yeah.
and I don't know which way is up, and I need you to kinda regulate or validate because 'cause I'm feeling vulnerable and, like, turmoils and, like, stuff is being shooken up, and you need somebody to step by you and go, "Yeah, you're right. You're not being an idiot. Like, this is good." Like, and you're like, "Okay, cool. Like I can." Whew."
Like, "Okay, cool, now I can actually process this." Like,
Right.
I'm not crazy, I'm not stupid for still feeling this.
Right, right. Or being selfish or, what's the other the victim, whatever those called, what was the one lady called on What We Do in the Shadows? The energy vampire that was a victimhood. Do you
Oh,
remember
yeah, yeah,
her?
yeah. I can't
Yeah.
remember her name. But yeah,
You
she,
know,
like,
you
made.
don't you don't want to be that person either.
Right. You don't wanna
Right?
be
Like,
stealing people's energy by using, like, "My life's so bad."
mhm.
But, like, I feel like also what goes along with this, guys, is, like, that big ego check.
Ego sneaks in there so many times,
She's a
a
cunt.
and she, is chameleon-esque, a skinwalker. Oh, I shouldn't say that.
Oh god, yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Beep. I bleeped it out.
Um, a
But
transformator, they
a
change.
shapeshifter.
Shapeshifter. Like, those kind of things, because anytime I start overthinking and then I, kinda, dissect it, take it out and dissect it, and I'm like, "Wait a minute. God damn it, ego's in there again."
Mhm.
She's just playing a different role.
She's gonna be our monster of Gaslight City. She looks
Yeah.
around the corners, the alleys between the pub and the fucking cafe, and she's just waiting to grab you.
Oh, yeah, and she's the drug dealer, she's the serial killer, she's the
She's the one in this instance with grief that's gonna tell you, well, for let's just use me and Nicole again as an example. I'm going through something that, like, I'm not right now, but I'm just saying, for example, I'm going through something that hit me again and it's been years. Well, Nicole doesn't want to hear about that. Like, she's busy. She's got her own stuff going on. Like, you're gonna
Mhm,
burden her and, like, that's ego.
that's ego.
You're too, like, sad and you're gonna make her sad and you're gonna put this on her. You're gonna what do you like, it's like when you really look at it, you guys, and you realize how fucking ridiculous it is the way we talk to ourselves, you can't physically put your emotions on somebody. If Nicole chose to experience those emotions with me, that is her choice.
Absolutely.
And who am I to tell her, well, I can't tell you what I'm going through because I don't want you to feel it too. And
Right.
I don't want you to, like, have to feel what I'm feeling. And, like, I don't want to put this on you, put this burden on you.
Well, how many times have we done that to each other where we're
Fuck
like,
yeah, I was gonna say, don't get me wrong, we still fucking do this.
right, I was like, "This is a game we play, this is a normal thing." Like, "Oh, I see the elephant in the room, we're not talking about it, though."
Yeah,
Okay.
listen, the ego monster lives within us still. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
we're going through this shit with you guys. When we go through these episodes, this is shit we're working on too, man, actively. So it's like, we have this too where, like, we know it's happening and we can see it for each other, but we've learned also with each other, like, not to poke the bear kinda thing, where it's
Right.
like, "You'll
Right.
come to me when you want to, or if it gets too heavy, you're gonna break and you're gonna need me, and I'll be there regardless."
Absolutely.
And it's
That's
like,
exactly how it is. Because, you know, there is a big thing about helping people up the stairs, but you can't, like, take the stairs away. Like, I can hold your hand.
and I'm not carrying your ass up the stairs either.
No, because that's not the point, right?
Right.
Like, that's not the point. The point is that, yes, we have our own stairs to
Fine.
step, climb.
Fine. To step.
I forgot words. Words are
It's
bad.
okay. That was a good one. We
I
have our
was
own
like,
stairs
step.
to step.
There's a word I want. I don't know what it is. Um, and if I take one of those steps from you, you don't learn what you're supposed to learn to get to the next step. So now you're missing a key element to that next level. So you're not going to do as well on that next level. And it's going to be way harder than when you had all the tools that you needed. It's like going up into the forest and you ain't got an axe because you didn't pick up the axe step. Like,
Yeah. It's like, think about it, you guys, like, we all know people who are not don't have the tools to self-regulate, right? They weren't taught them, they haven't seeked them out, they don't have the tools that we have in our toolboxes, right? Those
mhm,
that can self-regulate and know when stuff's happening, can be aware of it, like, know what to do, have different coping mechanisms. There are people that don't have that. And if you
mhm,
give them every little step and you do it for them, they're still not going to have that tool. They borrowed that tool from you and now you take it back and the minute you're gone, they don't know how to do it again.
mhm.
You can help them. You can be like, "Hey, I'll show you how to make this tool."
Right.
But like once you make it, you got to use it yourself.
Right. You're going to have to build up the strength to carry it. You're going to have to build the
Yep.
strength and the skilled trade to actually like use it.
Wield
Like,
it.
yeah, when you first, like, you just like when we cut hair off, like,
Yeah.
you're doing a haircut. When we did our first haircut, we weren't as good. Now that we've done our, trillionth one, our skilled trade has gotten better. And every time you do it, you get better. So every time, like, even now, like, as I go through this cycle of air, I realize that, okay, it's a cycle.
Mhm.
It always starts off rough. I gotta learn a new ritual. I gotta get new things. I have to think a different thought. I have new subjects to like papers to write and stuff like that, right? But I know it's a cycle. So I know that there's a beginning and an end, and I'm not going to be in the cycle forever. I have to
Mhm.
I'm moving through it because I already did it. So
Right.
it's going to do it. I just got to I got to do the work, right?
Yep. Yep. So, like, going along with all of this too, and like, right, we've talked about acceptance of the fact that we are grieving, and we've talked about being kind, and we've talked about like trying to cope with life changes, and that goes along with being kind to ourselves, right? And like making a space for ourselves and getting away from our pain when we have to.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing that I think is huge is giving yourself the space to grieve, meaning being able to be vulnerable and open about and expressing your feelings and
Mm-hmm.
realizing that you don't need anybody's approval to grieve.
Mm-mm.
You don't need that. But having that vulnerability and openness, even with just yourself, can start leading towards a better feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we're not bypassing this. We're being aware of it, right? We've already accepted
Mm-hmm.
we're grieving. So now we got to be open and vulnerable with ourselves about the grief. We got to like dissect it, like you said. We got to take it apart.
Mm-hmm.
We got to dissect it. We got to know why we're grieving. What is it? Is it because like every time that there's a loss, it brings up other questions. Like I said, that there's other cracks in the foundation. It's not just this big one down the middle. There's a
Mm-hmm.
shit ton of other little ones around it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, by having that openness to looking at them, that's going to help us with our grieving process.
Right. Like, it's a break.
Hmm.
You're gonna have these shattered pieces, and it's rough. And of course, like as humans, we don't like anything that discomforts us. We don't like anything that like um feels bad. So we try to like either brush it off or and it comes out a lot of times it'll come out sideways too when we're not dealing with it. So like you're really like upset about what has happened, but then you go yell at your partner for leaving the toilet seat up.
Yeah.
And it blows up into a way bigger deal than just leaving the toilet seat up. So that's what like undealt with emotions can do. They come out sideways on something that wouldn't
Yeah.
even matter,
A
right?
great another great example for this would be like, how we said that if you don't deal with grief, it can turn into like loneliness. So let's say you're at
Mhm.
that point, you haven't dealt with it. So now you're feeling lonely all the time. And your best friend, your mother, your sister, your brother, whoever it is, your person, they're gonna come over on Friday night, but they don't feel good. So they decide to stay home and you bite their head off because you're lonely and how dare they have feelings when you're having these big feelings and you're
Mhm.
lonely. And it's because you've gotten
Mhm.
so far past the healing. Like you're so deep into this grief and this sorrow that like not you're looking for somebody else to feel it too. Misery loves
Well,
company.
not only that, now you're actually creating your own loneliness,
Yes.
because that person didn't come over
Which turns into more validness.
about you
More
being lonely,
validity,
right?
there it is, yes.
Right.
It's fucked up, man.
Well, and it's a feeling world, right? Like it's just a feeling world and like, it's okay. We're all going to get through this, and we all like and if we don't, we got to redo it again, and that's fine too.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
there's a lot of stuff right now, especially in the world right now that like we do need to grieve. Like we need to grieve what was ever before 2020. We've never had a chance of that change. Not it doesn't matter if it was bad or good for you. It's still a change in, something we've a lot of things that we've had to let go of that simpler time, right?
Yeah,
And then going forward, like there feels like there's no time to have space, to have peace, to have those moments, right? Like
I
it's
agree.
more like a survival moment right now. Like
We're
there
in
is
fight
no
or flight.
time. Right, right. Like it's and that kind of things are hard. And there's plenty of I guess tools and stuff that can help you um with it, but I know how hard it is to make that first step or to um try to want to improve yourself because there's a whole thing about survivor's guilt too.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
You
I'm
know what
glad
I
you brought this
mean?
up.
Right? Like a whole thing on survivor's guilt is like if I have a good life because this person died, then am I guilty that you know, why do I get to live?
Do you know what that is too?
What?
It's your ego.
Ah.
It is, and I'm sorry to
Mhm.
say it because I know survivor's guilt is really real and it's hard to deal with, and that's not to diminish it, but when you look at it like it's your ego saying, "Well, basically, why am I better than them? Why am I
Right.
better than them? Why
Yeah.
am I more deserving than them?" If you look
Mhm.
at the language behind it, it's your ego saying that you're better than them. How dare you be better than them? How dare you be like this? It's like it's self-imposed posture syndrome. There's so many things that go into that, right? But it's
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
your ego feeding you, man. Feeding you to
Mhm.
get you back into a place where it can feed off of you and be like, it's the tyrant king just in there rampaging, man, and
Well,
taking
because it's
parts of you.
right, and if it can keep you in that cycle, it's feeding off of you.
Yes.
That emotion's a hamster wheel that it keeps going, so it feeds off of it and it gets stronger, right? Like
Hell yeah, man. survivor's guilt is so hard to deal with, and I can't imagine what it feels like, especially if you go through like a big world trauma or something. Like, we got fires, we got fucking volcanoes, we got hurricanes, all these terrifying fucking things. But like, I could see how that it would be an easy slope to slip down, you know? And it would
Mm-hmm.
be hard to climb back out of it. But I think if you looked at it and you recognize that, like, holy shit, that's my ego telling me I'm better than them.
Right.
Ew, we don't want to do that.
No, but it's so easy to do because you're in such a vulnerable space, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so easy to do because, like, you'll start to do it and then you're like, oh, wait, what?
So I feel like with all of this, this is like another big thing that I really think is important with grief is building a support system around you. Being once you're more open and vulnerable with yourself and you've accepted it, telling like your friends, like seeing who will be there for you, like really be there
Mm-hmm.
for you, not judge you and give you the space and just give you what you need. Because, like Nicole had said earlier, it can be really validating in the fact that, like,
Mm-hmm.
or it can be eye opening because
Mm-hmm.
Nicole and I are to the point where we can talk to each other and it's like, okay, that's your ego. Like, you gotta stop that. That's not healthy for you, and that's not fair to you to do that to yourself, and you're being mean to
Right.
yourself, and, like, you know what I mean? Sometimes you need those people so, 1, you can feel understood, and 2, you can have more understanding.
Mm-hmm. Which is also very scary to be vulnerable in front of somebody else and work through your stuff. And, you know, if you're going to heal alone, you have to be very careful because you can gaslight your own self. So, like,
Mhm.
this is where, and I know, like, we all talk about fucking journaling all the time. And I am one that's just as bad as this to journal because, um, I like the act of writing, like, I like the physical act, but I can't fucking spell for shit, right? So, like, I'm, like, fumbling my way through the whole thing, and, um, I'm working really hard to, like, get over that, because what I've noticed about journaling is not only can I get it out of my brain and put it into the real life, then I can dissect it and look at it from a different point of view, because in my head, it looks different than it looks on paper,
Yeah, in your
you
head, you
know?
go from one rabbit hole to another, and now what was happening isn't even what you're thinking about anymore. And now you're just
Mhm.
deeper in and deeper in, and you're like going crazy in your head because you're so far away from the point you first got to because you don't even know what path you took to
Mhm.
get here to be able to get
Right.
back.
Oh, absolutely. And then you've been sitting there for 45 minutes wondering, you know, how come you're
Overthinking.
overthinking all of it, right? Like, so how I explain journaling is, this is the use for it, for me, at least. I'm sure there's other uses, but this is the big one for me that really got me to kind of revisit it more often than not. It's almost like when I start to overthink and I'm running the hamster wheel, if I journal it out and put it in my computer, it's no longer, it's like taking the wheel out or the hamster. I don't care which one. It it's either one, and it takes it out and it puts it in the computer, and then I feel a lot better. I don't feel like I'm in that rat race and going around and round and round. It's almost like when Dumbledore, I think it was in the 4th Harry Potter, in the Goblet of Fire,
Oh, yeah.
where he took it out and it's that blue etheric yeah, and he put it in, like, a canister or something to save it for later. It's exactly like that for me, like, that's how I see it. So I'm taking that out because there's so much in here and putting it away so I can,
Look at
process
it.
it a different, yeah, just look at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
And
'cause
usually the thoughts I'm doing that is not they're not any help.
yeah, that's why it's so good about it is because then you
Mhm.
you realize, like, that wasn't why am I even thinking about that? How is that
Mhm.
helping me?
That's not
Like, it's
helping.
not. It's making me feel worse. Like,
Mhm.
how dare you do that to yourself? You
How
deserve better
dare
than
you?
that.
You deserve better. What are you doing with yourself?
Well, and I did wanna, like, mention that, you know, support groups aren't for everybody. Or, well, yeah, like, building your own support group isn't for everybody, but there are support groups out there as well as grief counselors as well. So, like, if
Mhm.
you want somebody third-partied who knows how to help heal grief, there are specific counselors for it. There are groups for different kinds of grief, like
Mhm.
widows or, I'm in a trigger warning for a sexual trigger word, rape, support groups. There are all these things like just loss in general. There are support groups out there for that that can help you, and it can make you feel very
Absolutely.
validated being around other people that completely understand what you're going through because they're going through it too
Mhm.
in real time.
That's the thing is like we're not getting out of here without experiencing grief at some point, right?
Yeah.
And then also like if you don't want to really do that route, but you still want to heal, like go get some Reiki, go get some
Yeah.
acupuncture. Tell them you're working on grief. Tell them, this is what you're trying to heal. Like if you don't want to talk it out and that's too painful, then start doing energetic work to help move it. And it will all kind of like start to really process and like on its own. It's a little bit for people that maybe don't have that support system or for people that like it's hard to be vulnerable, right?
Mhm.
Like it's hard to be that vulnerable. And I really found like Reiki and energy work, healing of some healing touch, even go get a massage, because
Yeah.
all that stuff is all put in your body and stuff. Like there are other ways to get you started on the journey instead of going right into like ripping the band-aid off. If you're not ready for that, that's okay.
It goes back to what I was saying, like, we can't look at one aspect of our healing. There's
Mhm.
psychological, there's emotional, spiritual, physical. Like, we have to watch our physical body too. And like that stuff can
Mhm.
be just, it can open, it can take away some of the stress that you have so that you can actually then come back to it with a more clear mind, a more peaceful, calm mind.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
taking baths, I was not a big bath person until I met Nicole, and sometimes when I am so fucking stressed, I get in the bath and I make sure I can't reach my phone because I have to sit there in a nice hot bath, and it smells good and it feels good, and I just have to sit there, and sometimes I don't even think about anything, like, I can
Mhm.
just sit there and enjoy it. I think that going for walks, like, even just going for walks to be able to get your body moving, and like then you start
Mhm.
focusing on the fact that you're breathing heavier, like if you're exercising you're breathing heavier and you got to focus on this, it gets you away from it for a minute so that like you can start getting like, you know, the pain out through movement through your body.
Right.
You can
Right.
start getting your body moving. I think watching your body during this like a grieving period is really important because like we said before too, you can also easily get sick during times that you're grieving.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because it lowers your immune system.
Oh god, yeah. Can make your blood pressure high, all that stuff we were talking about. And so like
Mhm.
getting out and moving, you're taking care of your physical body, which can help you in return to take care of your, it's like it gives you the energy and the stability, especially getting out of nature, getting more grounded
Right.
with nature. Just walking around in nature is going to help you ground your body so that you're not actively experiencing the trauma.
Yes. And if that's too hard, sometimes I tell people to watch a nature show.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You know what I mean? Like watch the nature show, watch this, on your big on a TV and whatever. Like look at the trees and really like try to connect with the trees, kind of try to connect with the beautiful image, any beautiful images that you have. Go to if you want to go out because sometimes public is too much, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we all don't live in the forest, so like you could go because I was thinking you could go to a museum if that's your thing, and just walk around silent in and being immersed in these beautiful energies that are in this building, right?
Mhm.
And where people are literally just appreciating things that are on the wall, things that people have created. So there's this energetic, like, back and forth that's been, it's like a church almost, where it like has been built up about just appreciation and like of beauty.
Yeah.
And I think that can really help move you through as well.
Yeah. It's like also like with the walk thing, like, man, if you go to state parks and, things like that too, sometimes there's nobody there and you could just go sit at a park bench, go to a park,
Hmm.
nobody's there, you could swing. Just to like get your
Swinging is
body's
so good. Yeah.
yeah, swing. Getting your body moving like that is just gonna help move the energy a little bit so that it doesn't feel so goddamn heavy.
Right.
And
And
it
it's
sounds
hard.
so
It's
hard.
heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's really hard, but it does help if you can muster the strength to do it. It can help. And you know what? Who gives a fuck if you're crying in public? Be nice to yourself because there has been times like in my past relationship, I was really going through a moment where it's really, really hard and I was sobbing and I left him in my apartment to go walk in public in my apartment complex around this little circle thing. And I had my headphones on and I played classical music and I cried the entire time and I walked for 2 hours.
Hmm.
And you know what? By the end of it, I was like, I just felt relieved, like relieved
Hmm.
and relaxed. And just, I didn't feel good about the situation still. And I didn't know what I was going to do. But you know what? It got rid of a lot of
That build up.
pain and anger
Yeah.
and frustration and all these things we feel with these kinds of sorrows. Like,
Hmm.
and I didn't give a flying fuck if one person saw me crying. I just
Right.
didn't, and it was also so liberating because it was like, yeah, we all hurt. We all have pain.
Hmm.
Who knows? You might meet some spiritual ass weirdo like us that might be like, "Are you okay? If not, that's
Right.
okay. Do you need a
It's o-
hug? I'll hug
it,
you."
it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah, you might meet us out in nature, a heathen in the wild.
A heathen in the wild.
I'll hug you. I'm not a hugger, but if you're in pain, I'll hug you. I will share that. So I wanted to talk about too, if we're okay with moving on to this, but if not, we can wait. But I did want to talk about are some things that grief can lead to
Hmm.
in like a positive way.
Hmm.
So like one of them being like it can really make your relationship stronger.
Hmm.
Like those that are there for you create a stronger bond and every relationship becomes more important for you and you realize
Right.
like how important they are and it can lead to a lot of gratitude. Like
Yeah.
it can make you take better care of your health,
Hmm.
especially if you're looking at after somebody that is sick and dying. It can make you realize like how important it is to take care of your health. And like it can make you more spiritual. It can make it so that the little things don't bother you anymore. If you lose someone, you start to realize that the relationships in your life are more important than what bag you buy, what color
Right.
car you pick out, things that would
Right.
normally stress you out. It can cause you to make more of an effort in making more memories with people, spending
Hmm.
more time with those people. And truly, I think that grief can lead to us loving more completely, like
Absolutely.
more freely, more deeply. Love is born out of grief.
Hmm. It's that seed that goes in after the like ashes have burned off.
Yes, absolutely.
I forgot. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's okay. That was all I had. So I was like,
Oh,
I'd like to at least talk about some of the things that once you're on the other side of grieving, what it can look like that's positive. And I feel like definitely like the taking care of your health and your relationships getting stronger and like making more memories with people and like the not caring about the little things I think is so important, you know?
and that's what I do. Like, death makes life worth living, right?
Yes.
So that's what, and we forget what out of death is grief, right? Because it's that change, that takeaway, um, that transformation that leads us to grief, that leads to other things, because we get attached to things. And this is, grief isn't just for people. You can grieve. And I know we talked about this, like you can grieve pets. You can grieve, obviously, that's an easy one.
Like a job
Um,
loss.
like a job loss,
Mhm.
like you're very sad about leaving these people, this job, this comfort in your life, right? Um, but there's still that loss, and that uh there's still a lot to that where it makes you stronger,
Right.
right? And it like, I don't know, it's so hard to like actually think about this.
I feel like the best way to put it is like there's always a pendulum swing, right?
Hmm.
The pendulum never stays in one place. And if it's extremely over here in grief, at one point it will probably swing more towards happiness, if not more towards a middle spot. Like, say you
Hmm.
experienced all these great, phenomenal happinesses, and then you experience a huge loss. It's got to balance out.
Hmm.
So, like, on the other end of grief is going to be hopefully peace and calm and some more like gratitude and kindness and happiness.
There's almost an understanding, a deeper understanding of like just being a person.
100%.
Like you the more you go through it, the more you just realize like how precious people are. And if I'm gonna fight with you about, what top you're wearing today or whatever, right? It doesn't really mean anything. It's not gonna do anything that's like. Plus, this is also one of those experiences too, is that if I'm going to put towards the effort to be your friend, have you in my life, to do all this kind of stuff, it really makes it where like, are you worth me grieving at the end? Right? Like, it really makes me kind of take stock about who's going to spend time in my life and who's not, because there's just certain things at this point that I don't want to deal with,
Yeah.
and I don't need to. I've done it. Bought
Hmm.
the book and the t-shirt and burnt them in the backyard. So I just know that, like, yeah, as you move forward and realize that this isn't good for you, there's still that grief process that has to go through to like let go of it completely. It's a way of letting go. It's the feeling of letting go.
Hmm.
And I know we talk about letting go like it's a good thing, and it is, but it's not necessarily going to look like joy.
Right. Also,
Joy
it,
comes after.
it doesn't mean like you're letting it go. I don't care anymore. Right.
Right,
It's like
right,
an
right.
opening of the floodgates. We always say that. It's an opening of the
Mhm.
floodgates. It's like a letting go of that latch, and you're just letting this flow in. We're not letting go of the whole entire structure.
Right, we're not, bypassing or negating or, dissociating from it either, like, we're literally moving through it, and sometimes and it's not gonna make sense to everybody because they don't understand how you work, right? Like,
Yep.
and that's okay, like, that's you gotta save space for people just to be a little curious, and maybe, they think it's uncomfortable for them, so they will run. Some people will run,
Yeah, absolutely.
and depending on the person, sometimes that's okay, like, I get it, or, like, you haven't put enough stock in other places that if you run from me, like that fair weather friend kind of thing, right? Like,
Hmm.
and that's all up to you, really. Like, you're the one that keeps the notes,
Yeah,
you're the
just
keeper captain of the ship, whatever euphemism you want.
You can just make you really aware of your friendships and the relationships you have around you.
No, because I remember we had a Great Dane and she passed away. And then like I realized why you wait to get another like pet after you lose one because we were kind of not forced. I don't want to say that, but like, you want to be a good person. And this woman had a Great Dane, and it was only 2 months, maybe a month after Purdy had died. And I was like, well, I'm in the signs of the universe. So of course I was like, I gotta, it's a sign. We must have it. Like, but also like red flags. Like, it's too soon.
Right.
Um, I don't know a lot of things until I get on the other side of it. And then I'm like, huh, great. So we got her. And, I realized a lot of stuff that I had to work through really quickly. Like, I was angry and I had to work on my anger. And she taught me a lot. Like, she taught me so much. Um, because like I had to be like, listen, I'm angry because I'm dealing with death and grief. It's not her fault. She's just as displaced as like I am at this point. And it's not like she didn't do anything to the other dog for her to be here. It's not like, but yeah, I was angry about that. So I had to like check myself real quick because, you're like, well, this poor baby doesn't even have her mom right now. Like, and I'm over here being a bitch about it because like I'm in on my feels and like I'm taking it on this poor dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like working through this with her was really educational too because like I got to feel my way through it and I understood in a deeper fashion of like, oh, right. Like I get it. Like we haven't gotten another dog since Raya has died because I can't grieve them anymore.
That was hard.
It was too losses too soon together. And I knew I was devastated. And it was like, if I bring, so now when I bring these animals in, it's like I have to bring them in and be worthy of this, that I know I'm going to go through grief. I know I'm going to go through hardship when they leave me. Right. So it's a very pick and choose kind of thing right now because I'm like, I just ain't ready for that bullshit, right? Like I love animals and I love, I've got a ton of them, right? Like, and we just haven't, I can't even bear getting another dog right now because I still feel, now I'm a little better now than, last earlier, but like, I'm like, girl, please. Cause them,
I
you
agree with
know,
you.
right? Like it's just a tough thing. And not only are you dealing with not only are you dealing with you and this animal and your family that is connected with this animal, you're also dealing with whatever circumstances because you have to go to the vet and you need to have help through these people. And with no fault of their own, you have this judgment or this like conflict in there
Mm-hmm.
because maybe they don't believe the way you believe, or maybe, you know, you don't have $20,000 to cure their cancer or whatever, they're doing. Um, and it puts you, it's like salt inside of the wound that they're just like, and they're not, from my experience, in these 2 episodes, they weren't as helpful as I would like them to been, or as gracious as I would like them to been, or gentle even,
Yeah,
and that was the big thing. Like that was a huge like, oof. That was big feels. Like that was really big feels.
absolutely.
And so it's like I get it, right? Like I get it on more levels than like it's a
Just
lot.
the surface. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Grief is hard, man.
It's
It's
hard, but
hard.
it's doable, right? Like
You
it's
have to do it.
hard. Right. There's no
I'm
I mean
sorry, I'll
there
be
are
the one that
choices,
pushes.
right?
You have to do it. You can't
You have to
not
do it.
do it because not doing it is worse than doing it.
Well, then you become like a hoarder and you can't let go of anything because you're afraid of grieving it. Like
Yep.
or you translate it into another realm um where it does start to it breaks down your body like all of a
It's
sudden
depressive.
it's depressing. It's it breaks down like you can't move anymore. So then you like your body starts to do atrophy and then like you can't you're weaker your body well and then like a lot of grief I think is cancer too because it's so feeling motivated that these are feelings that we're just not we haven't cleaned all the way through we haven't dealt with them we've let them be stagnant for too long. And again, this is where, if you're not ready to talk about it, this is where Reiki really helps in finding somebody that can shift and pull and like help you start this process without necessarily like ripping the banding off and like having this true like uncomfortable moment of how you feel, right? Like this
Yes.
vulnerability.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um Yeah, I know. I think physical contact too is really good when you're going through grief, when you're ready. Massages, just having somebody touch you. We don't realize how important physical touch is.
Yeah.
And there's massages out there if you don't have like a partner or if your partner's not that person. Um that help like that movement helps, right? Like and also being that person for the that is going through grief, knowing when to push, when to pull, when to like tell them to um try harder, when it's time not to do that, when to bring them a sandwich, when to bring them a Twinkie instead. Do you know like
Yeah.
those kind of things that really help a person through grief? You don't have to fix it. And I think that's where we all get caught up in is we have to fix it. And it's like, I'm not going to fix your grief. That's impossible.
Right.
I can hold your hand,
Right.
right? Like we can do things like that, but you don't have to fix it. You don't have to have the right words for it. Like, you know, even to the point of like, there were top 5 things that you weren't supposed to say to somebody in grief, like, that they're in a better place or that, these superficial, like I even hate saying, are you okay? Because, but there is literally, I've not found a phrase that would work better.
Yeah, and I think it's situational because, like, for me, there was that one instant that I had that was so traumatic for me and was super I definitely was really sad about it, and nobody asked me if I was okay, and it
Mhm.
was traumatic.
Right.
And, like, the moment that you did, it hit me that I wasn't and that
Mhm.
nobody had asked me if I was okay.
Mhm.
It was just I'm sorry's, and it wasn't their fault. It felt like, "Well, what are you sorry for?"
Right.
'Cause, like,
W
what are you sorry for? I think more than anything, also being like, "I'm here. I'm here."
That's it. It's just answer yeah, that's the thing is I always ask if you're okay, and that was that's still the best line, even though, like, when somebody walks in after, like, attending a funeral, like, you obviously know they're not okay, and sometimes I'm like, I'll giggle a little bit because, like, you're like, "Are you okay?" Like and I know that's a stupid question, but, like,
It's kinda like a check-in question, though,
it
where it's like
is, it
sometimes
is.
some people are in better spots than you would think, and, like, it's just check-in, like, "Are you okay?" And then it's also not a bad thing to be like, "No, I'm not okay at all."
Right.
So you're just
Right.
letting that person that cares know where you're at.
And it's just, and I think, I don't know, sometimes I feel like ego comes in and goes like, well, everybody asks them, don't ask them that. Right. Like when maybe somebody hasn't asked them that. Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe they need 100 people to ask them that.
And it's
That's also possible.
maybe they're just waiting for the right one to ask them that.
Right, that too, because it's just not the right person saying the okay, because again, it's such a word or a phrase that's used so programmably. So
Yes.
it's like people just say it to say it, but they don't really want the back half of it. They don't want to
Hmm.
listen.
Right. Sometimes it just takes the right person, man.
Hmm.
And they can do a lot of help for you.
Hmm.
Grief. Good
Grief.
grief.
Good grief. Good grief. Good grief. Where did that come from? Good grief.
All I
Good
know it
grief.
from is Charlie Brown.
Good
Well, I think
good grief, Charlie Brown.
for a while in the schedule, we're not talking about anything dark, unfortunately.
What are we gonna do with our time then?
Oh, we're moving into love.
Oh my god.
Love and marriage, love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage.
Oh my god.
We go from love to marriage, and we got to fit something else in there. So maybe we'll do one more dark one for you guys, but I don't know.
Great grief is good. Grief is a lot.
Grief is a lot. I hope this helps you guys. I hope that this can give you more understanding for yourself and others.
Yeah, and then if you're feeling so froggy, research a little bit, educate, or even the next time put in that situation and you have to be the supportive friend, Google it and see what it says. Like look up things to say, things to like, just to help you a little bit along. Because as soon as you start priming the pump, the other stuff will come and you'll know exactly what to do. Read the
Yes.
signs, feel the resistance. If they're a little bitey, that's okay. Don't ever, just because they yell at you, do not ever yell back. Ever. I don't care what they say. They are not in a place to handle your feelings, and this is not about you. So
No.
if you can't put yourself aside, don't go help them because you have to go in there and you have to face things and listen to things. And it may not, again, it's not going to be pretty, right? And
Yeah.
if you know that you can't do that, maybe either find something else you can do.
Yeah.
Send them flowers, send them, maybe it's a gift. Maybe it's food that you can do. You have a special gift too. It just may not be listening to them, right? Or
Right.
sitting in that fire. That's
Yep.
okay, right? That's a different person's job.
Yep. Yep.
But just remember, because sometimes, like, do not ever yell at anybody that's going through grief.
Yeah. Or argue or fight. Just don't fight them in any way.
There's no fighting, right? You're not right. Doesn't even matter if you are right, you're not right.
Right. Right.
You're
And who
just not
knows,
right.
maybe one day down the road, you could be like, hey, I was right. But really, at
Right.
that point, are you going to want to?
Right. That's the thing, is like,
Have
it's one of those things that you gotta have space for another person to be angry, upset, and messy
mm-hmm.
because they're raw and vulnerable, and that shit hurts.
Fuck yeah, man. I
Hmm.
agree.
And thank you for my TED Talk.
Thanks for coming to the Heathens for the People TED Talk. I agree. We will step off of our soapbox now.
That's absolutely.
All right, friends. Well, we will see you in the next episode. And something. It'll be a surprise.
It'll be a surprise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, bye bye,
Mhm.
everybody.
Okay, bye bye.